Hi, I'm Cheryl Vaught, and I left the church long ago. But I grew up in Utah in a Mormon family. My great-great-grandfather was adopted by Brigham Young in summer quarters, along in the same ceremony with John D. Lee. And he came to Utah in 1848. And then my family stayed there and reared me in it, but I always had trouble with blind faith and obedience my whole life. That's been my saving grace, maybe. But in college, I had a dream which finally brought it to the surface where I couldn't stand it any longer, and I dreamed that I was being gently taken down into a cellar and very gently by Mormons being told, well, you know, you have a problem with your faith and your obedience, and we're going to help you. And they pulled out sledgehammers and they pulled out saws. They said, we're really going to help you because we love you, and we need to fit you into these mummy cases that are around the ceiling. And suddenly the mummy cases turned to glass, and I saw mutilated people in there. So, of course, I scrambled out of there as best I could and climbed away, and they're chasing me, saying, come back, this is your last chance. And finally I turned around and looked at them, and they were deformed. I looked at myself, and I was whole. And that was that was the end of that. So that was a long time ago, and I felt a little isolated. So it's good to see there are other people, maybe with similar backgrounds, and here you are.
I'm Jerry Vaught. I'm the husband, and you can keep filming, but part of my story involves an obscene gesture that I gave to a bishop, so you may not want that on the film. But to follow up on my wife's story, we met in college, and on our first date, it was no more than 10 or 15 minutes after starting the date that I popped the question, and the question was, are you religious? And she said no, and I said, well, tell me more about yourself. And so that was the beginning, because I'm also not religious. When we graduated from Arizona State and moved to California, the Mormons tracked her down. Pioneer stock, right? So for 25 years, they sent the bishop, who got the door slammed in his face, and I'm not a Mormon, so I don't know about all this stuff, but the Relieving Society, or whatever you call that stuff, would show up, and this one woman called one time, a total stranger, and said, you have to donate a recipe, and so she slammed the phone down and all that. So this went on for 25 years, and I said, these people are holes, and they will never give up. And I said, let me take care of it. She said, no, you have to be civil and polite. She has more class than I do. And so I said, okay. And so finally one day, 25 years later, they called up and wanted a hot dish. And she lost it, and she said, you take care of it. And so I did, and she got her letter kicking her out very shortly thereafter. And my view of all this, because I don't have any personal ownership of it all, I take the approach that don't use a fly swatter if a stick of dynamite will do. And so I went to, first of all, I went to the police in our town. I start with the police. I don't work up to them. And I said, I'm going over to this church of polygamists over here. And I said, if you want to send a patrol car, I said, you do that. So I went in, and this was like on a Tuesday night, and I went in and saw a little light on back in the office. Wednesday. oh, something special happens in Mormons on Wednesdays. But anyway, I went in and there's this man there. He's this very nice gentleman and in his 50s or whatever, I guess you call them bishops. And so he was there, and so I went into a tirade, and I said, you people have been harassing my wife. And as it turned out, he wasn't even her bishop. But see, I didn't bother with all the rules that are on the computer, like you have to find out who your bishop is. No, you don't. You really don't. I figure, you know, if you have roaches in your house and you see a roach and then it goes under a cabinet and the next day you see a roach, you don't say, is that my roach? You kill it, you know. So I said, thank you. So I said to him, I said, is the camera running? I said to him, I said, you know, I said, you polygamists have been harassing her for 25 years. I said, you want my wife to be a Mormon. I want to find your wife, and I want her to be a whore. Well, he turned red, he turned white, and then he turned purple, and, you know, at this, and so within a few days, she got her letter. You're booted. And so when the letter came, she was greatly relieved, and I said, no, it's not over, because it will be over when I say it's over. And they made the mistake of putting the home address of this other man. What's the higher level above bishop? Thank you. They put his address in there. So I went to the police department in his town, and I told them the same story, and then I sent letters to the police department, both of these bishops, and I said to them, this is just more harassment. Well, they were appalled. In the Lafayette Police Department, I asked them that on the 30-day deadline, that when it was her time to be kicked out, that the police should go over there on that day to say how little we were intimidated by it. And that was 7 years ago. We haven't heard a peep.